Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Clear 4-8 podcast, a podcast where we talk about Final Fantasy XIV, maybe some MMOs, maybe some games, or whatever comes to mind sometimes. Here with me, I've got Clarissa,
Hello.
Sujak,
Hello.
and I'm Knox, and we're just a few people that got together playing video games. Um, I guess do we start with a bit of history of the Clear 4-8 group?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Well, I guess technically it would have started with me because long story short, we were recruiting for a raid team. We kind of messed up, over recruited, lack of communication, and Sujek ended up one of the people that was extra in all of the mess, and we made
Some extra.
you know the leftovers, if you will,
Yeah.
and and we decided to make a second raid team within our FC, and that's how we ended up with a whole nother team. The first team fell apart, so on and so forth. And I guess Sujak, you take over.
Second team going strong. We kind of split from the FC because we were all on different servers in Final Fantasy. So we kind of made our own static name and established Clear for 8, kind of as a joke for Clear for 1 parties. We said Clear for 8 because we're all gonna need it.
Oh yeah, did we ever? Or not me, I guess, because I wasn't in the original, the OG squad. I was not in that particular squad. Although we were there, like I mean, I was in the Discord. We were all part of the community at the time.
Yes. I think Clear for 8 now has grown to a Final Fantasy XIV community, mostly focused on rating and high-end content, but also just a place to meme, joke around, and just chit-chat.
We do. I mean, beyond the rating, we do Unreal clears, so we can all get our faux leaves. We do our maps. Gosh, we were doing like 2 hours of maps last night. We do it all. Do the whole thing, the whole shebang, all of Final Fantasy XIV. And so that's Clear for 8.
Yep, that is us. Ragtag group of Final Fantasy raiders.
Best in the business.
So true.
For sure.
Yeah, okay. We're experts.
Still trying to clear Uwu. We're the best.
Stop.
Yeah, one day.
One day.
Hashtag soon.
Yeah.
Trademark.
Yeah. So now I guess talked about the group here. Maybe we go into ourselves. You know, where we came from in gaming. A little bit of what we love in video games. And whatever else you guys want to say about yourselves. I guess we'll start with Clarissa. She hasn't had much to say just yet.
So I'm Clarissa. I'm a 3D generalist, illustrator, and cosplayer. Games have always been a huge part of my life and have kind of influenced my interests. Very clearly, as I love making fan art and cosplays of such, and the characters that I like. But my aunt and uncle honestly got me into gaming the most because when I was younger, I kind of just like watch them play different things on like the SNES and PlayStation 1 when they got one of those. And so I'd watch them play like Super Mario World, Super Metroid, the classics basically. But when my aunt would play Chrono Trigger, that's when I was kind of the most invested. And when I got a little bit older, she'd let me make a save file and kind of do my own run. And I kind of discovered my love for RPGs the most through that game. Definitely still my all-time favorite. Um, my uncle ended up gifting me a copy of Super Smash Bros. 64 when I was a little bit older, and I have played like every game in that series. And it's honestly been kind of a way for me to discover new games as well. And when I picked up Smash Bros. Melee, that's when I kind of discovered Fire Emblem because I'm like, okay, who's this Marth guy? Who's this Roy guy? And I did some research and was like, these games are kind of cool. Um, I joined the bandwagon a bit late though, so I've only played kind of like the Awakening and Forward games, but I really did enjoy them, but my interests have shifted kind of elsewhere as of late. But kind of similarly to how Smash Brothers got me into Fire Emblem, it also got me into Xenoblade. So I saw Shulk in Smash 4, and I'm like, okay, who is this guy? I really like his playstyle in the game. I feel like it's only right for me to try Xenoblade, and that kind of hit all the points in my love for RPGs, and I ended up absolutely adoring Xenoblade 1, and I'm basically hooked in all of the games in that series. Um, I have like 6 Xenoblade cosplays right now, thinking about 2 others. Have made so many pieces of fan art for all the games in the series, and yeah, still pretty active in the fandom for that one still. And honestly, absolutely adore the game.
Yeah, I remember I was on your Twitter looking at some of it. I don't know what it was. I saw it was a Xenoblade cosplay.
Yeah.
I can't remember the character now because I don't know anything about Xenoblade. I'm honestly not
So
even sure what the game plays like, to be honest.
it's kind of, I think it'd be classified as an action RPG. So starting from like Xenoblade 1, there's a lot of exploration that you can do, and obviously there's a solid story. Uh, I think there's very good pacing in that game, particularly. Great character development, all kind of things that I love. But you just kind of like run around, explore the world that you're in, kind of complete the story beats, get super attached to characters, kind of twist around in all the plot twists, and you're just standing there with your mouth hanging open because it's like, oh my god, that just happened. I don't even know what to do now. But um yeah, so I actually did cosplay Malos. He's from Xenoblade 2. He's considered one of the antagonists. But what I like about that game is I personally think that the characters are like pretty well written and are like they have some depth to them, especially the ones that could be classified as antagonists. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite characters from Xenoblade 2.
Very cool. That is. I can't say I've played any of those games, but they sound very interesting.
For sure.
Yeah, I've heard the name, of course, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've never actually played one. I don't even remember seeing gameplay of it. So you say it's like an action RPG, so would it fall under? I'm trying to think of like a Devil May Cry style. I've kind of seen gameplay of that. I haven't even played that. I call
Yeah,
myself a gamer and I haven't played all these.
I'm not
Like,
familiar with that series, but
yeah.
Like
maybe
Nier? Maybe like a Nier, if you've played or
um
seen that. I'm just
I've
saying from a
attempted to play
gameplay.
it.
Like, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think it could be considered near adjacent as far as gameplay. Mind you, I did attempt to play Nier, but I tried to play the PC version when it wasn't optimized. So I was running at like a good tasty like 3 frames per second or something. But um
Yikes.
Oh,
the
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 the near
gameplay,
the near slideshow experience.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Nier slideshow experience. But I think it's kind of similar. There's a battle system, definitely not turn-based. Um Honestly, it might be kind of similar to that Final Fantasy remake. Was it 7 that
Okay.
was
Yeah.
remade
Yeah.
recently? I've watched one of my friends kind of play that a bit. It's honestly pretty similar to that. Different UI, but general idea is the same.
Yeah, I've got that
So you
game.
have like spells you can cast or actions that you can um, initiate, and you're just kind of like running around the enemy, hitting those positionals. Yes, there are positionals in Xenoblade,
Oh my gosh. I
but
quit.
yeah, it's pretty similar.
Very cool. How about you next? Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, me. Well, gosh, I'm the cliche. I've been gaming since I was a wee little boy. I don't know why I chose to say it like that. but I've been playing since, oh gosh, when I was like 5, and I first saw a Nintendo at a family friend's house. I don't even remember who it was, but they had a Nintendo, and I was enraptured. I loved it. It was just Mario. But I just thought, why isn't everyone doing this? Why do we watch TV when we have this? I can play Excite Bike. Forget movies. I can play a game. This is incredible. And from there, it was just every Christmas, I wanted a new video game. I wanted the new system. So I've had something like every console generation, I guess until PS4 era and the Xbox One. I didn't really have one because I was PC only at that point, and all I played was PC games. But
PC Master Race.
oh, for sure, for sure. It's the best. None of this console peasantry, even though I have an Xbox Series X and a PS5.
My gosh.
They're just great for sitting at, the couch and just lounging somewhere and playing a game. It's great. But I guess favorite games I've had ever, there was some of the ones that come to mind immediately was like Command and Conquer Red Alert, which was an RTS back in 1996 or something like that. So mid 90s, and that made me fall in love with PC games in general. Loved it. I played it for hours at a friend's house, got it for myself for Christmas because I was like 11. I couldn't go buy things, and loved that. And then I loved sports games for a while. I did like Forza and Gran Turismo, FIFA, Madden, loved all that. And I guess what made me come back to PC gaming a lot was World of Warcraft and League of Legends. I sunk thousands of hours into both of those. And WoW really made me get into MMOs, which eventually one day led to the Final Fantasy XIV craze that I'm in now and have been for a couple years. It's just what a great genre in general. And yeah, I've been playing games a long time, so I guess I have an interesting perspective of what it was like in the 90s PC gaming, where Windows updates were sold at Walmart in boxes.
That is
Like,
wow.
version 1.2 Windows 95, $20. This little, I don't remember the prices. I didn't buy it. I was a little child, but I remember, we'd see the discs like, do we need that? Oh, this one will let me play my game because it doesn't work on Windows version blah, blah, blah. Because it would say on the box, like, requires Windows version this, and you needed to go get that. Driver discs, go find it. Hope it came with the game. Like, it was a mess. There wasn't an internet to download the patch. Like, if your game was broken, that was it. Your game was broke. There was no patch coming online. There was no fix. There was just, oh well. Which
Can you imagine gamers today?
Oh my gosh.
The molding.
Oh yeah. I spent $60. It can't even boot.
Oh,
the return lines. It's so much better now. I know people complain that games come out incomplete and broken messes. Where's my frame rates? But at least they can fix it.
yeah.
I remember when I got a game, it was called Fast Food Tycoon. Not a great game. It was just a family member bought it for me randomly. And I remember I couldn't play it for years. It was like a year and a half, 2 years. I just had the box sitting there because it didn't work on Windows 98. And then I found out that someone down the street had Windows ME on theirs and it would work on their computer. So we all saw an opportunity, and I started babysitting their kids for their date nights. And in the evenings they would fall asleep and I could play my game on their computer until they got back. So I finally got to check it out.
Oh.
The things I went through to be a gamer.
Community gaming.
Gosh. It was 2 twin girls and their slightly older brother, so they were a handful.
Oh boy.
But by golly, I was gonna play that Fast Food Tycoon, and that was, yeah. I mean that's my history of gaming. I don't know how to even. I've played every type of game that there is. I just haven't played every game ever because that's just too much.
It is quite a bit.
Oh yeah, that's. I mean,
You
geez.
like the impossible.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'll ever play the games in my Steam library. I don't even know why I
Oh no.
have most of these games. I don't
Like the
know. It's like 600 at this point. There's a bunch I've never installed. I have no idea if I'll
Steam
ever play them.
sales.
Oh,
yeah,
Steam
Steam sales.
sales, Humble Bundles.
Yeah.
Just yeah. Wow, 20 games for $6. Don't mind if I do.
Oh man.
Played one of them for 30 minutes. Whatever.
Man, Valve must love you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm surprised I didn't get picked for one of the free Steam decks.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, buddy. You want another reason to buy more games you're not going to play?
Oh gosh.
But there's
Oh.
so many good ones out there, you know? It's just wild how many games there are, especially today with you're not limited to what's on a shelf now.
Yeah.
I mean, I can literally just, hey, I want a game that's like this, and then I've got 500 options at my fingertips at any moment. But enough about me for now. Sujak, what's your story?
Hello. I'm Sujak. I actually wasn't allowed to play video games when I was younger. My mom was mostly under the impression, like if you have quote, downtime, we're either playing outside, reading a book, or hanging out with like the neighborhood kids and riding our bikes around and stuff. So I never really played like console games or anything like that, but in the 90s we did get a computer, like the family computer back in the day, and it was a Packard Bell. Um, and my dad would sneak games home from like pirated copies from people at work. And so I'd play like I was like probably 8 years old playing like Wolfenstein, which is absurd, but here we are. Like Myst, Oregon Trail, um, Sim City, those types of games that could kind of borderline educational, but also, they're still games. So some of them slid by my mom and it was okay, but my dad kind of snuck us some. But
What a
otherwise,
great dad, by the
I
way.
Yeah.
know. Just, I think they saw that like I could be hooked into video games pretty easily, so I think they were just trying to steer me away from it so I could like, I was the model student getting like straight A's and stuff, and yeah. So then fast forward to college, and I was like, freedom. Uh, the floor below me were just like this. It was like a LAN party every day with those guys, and so they were playing like Final Fantasy, Dota, Warcraft 3, like all these different games, and I was just like, holy cow, this is amazing. I just want a game. Luckily, I did graduate college. I didn't just like go deep dive into video games and drop out of college, but I did invest a lot of time playing games that I'd missed out on for so many years. Um, so yeah, I finally got like my first gaming PC after I graduated college and my first like console after graduating college. And I probably the biggest time sink game that I've had then was World of Warcraft. I started playing at the end of Vanilla into Burning Crusade and then like all the way through Mop. And yeah, like Nox, I sunk so much time into that game just between actually it was mostly PvP. I loved arenas, I loved battlegrounds. And this was a time before rated battlegrounds, so you would just kind of queue in and just as a group and then just like completely steamroll the other team, and I love doing that. Um and so MMOs have always kind of been a huge part of my adult gaming life. Um I've played League of Legends, Overwatch, Diablo, Final Fantasy games as well. And obviously Final Fantasy XIV. I was one of the WoW refugees coming out in the past few years. Just bailed ship on WoW and completely dove into Final Fantasy XIV. And so here we are. And I guess that as a side note, my day job, I'm a software engineer, data scientist. and I apply a lot of those kind of like coding or sort of analytical thinking to video games now as well. And so it's been helpful to know how to code to sort of make scripts or helpful things for games too. So I kind of like how that has worked out so far.
Sounds like third party get banned.
What?
No.
No, I don't use slogans. Oh my gosh, no. But like, I don't know. Well, in WoW, it was like I'd write Lewis scripts for stuff.
Oh yeah, well,
And this,
WoW was the Wild West when it came to that. Oh my
oh yeah,
gosh.
super Wild West, and that's kind of actually what got me started with coding, because I kind of was a career switcher and I didn't start coding right out of college, and so I think part of that like love of like taking control of what I actually wanted in like WoW's UI fueled my current career.
Yeah, I yeah, because I can see. I don't know, video games always kind of sparked an interest in me, just the interest. Obviously, I have never actually pursued it. But I think a lot of people have looked at coding like, man, it'd be so cool if I could make this thing in a game, or if I could do a mod myself and just make whatever I wanted. And you've actually lived the dream a little bit, you went out there and actually learned it.
Yeah. Say though that I don't. We maybe another day we'll talk about this, but like the game industry and being like a developer or coder in the game industry, that was a hard no from me.
I could see that, and yeah. It's well, just the big public stories you hear about. Oh my gosh, that's enough to make you question it. Much less the ones you don't hear about, which I'm sure are rampant.
For
Um,
sure.
and plus, I'm sure you hear about the grind culture in the video games industry, and what do they call it? The crunch time that they always like to do. All these companies have been getting in trouble for lately.
Crunch
People,
time and lawsuits and
Mhm.
yeah, just blah. No thanks.
I feel like it's got this weird thing that it's video games is particularly, I would say, with in the software engineering and the programming, all of that realm, it's a more passionate workforce because it's video games. Most people go towards that because they already have a passion for games. So it's
Yeah.
more exploitable
Oh,
as a
For
yeah.
sure.
workforce. Whereas it's hard to find someone who is just diehard passionate about network engineering. Like they might like it, but it's not like they live, eat, and breathe all day. Man, I just love sysadmin work. Like that's not
Yeah.
usually a passion like it is with, man, I'm making my own video game. Like I designed that sword or the physics or I made the run animations, and like there's a pride in that work that is very sure, I'll work 120 hours this week and sleep in the office. That I can't even. No, but
Yeah. I think the game industry like sort of banks on that.
yeah.
Yeah.
They and not just like developers, but I'm sure like artists could, because like,
Oh,
that's their
yeah.
craft, that's their love. Um and that it's kind of predatory in that way, in that they companies know, oh yeah, our employees, they'll go that like 60-hour a week because it's their passion.
hmm
Just wild to me.
As a creative, that's honestly been something that I've been kind of thinking about fairly recently. I currently don't work in the game industry, or I work business right now. But I did have kind of passions to kind of work towards that, and I'm honestly starting to realize that, like, I feel like it would be great to be that person. It's like, hey, I made this sword, I modeled this character, but kind of looking at the ways that I like to work personally, I feel like the kind of grind culture would be it would take a huge toll. And it's just like, okay, I think personally there are some issues right now that I probably would have a hard time dealing with in that industry until they're resolved. So I personally just think, okay, I'm just going to focus on doing what I can on my own on the side. But yeah, I think they definitely take advantage of people just taking pride in their work and kind of hoping that they'll bend over backwards to do anything. And it's like, don't necessarily think that's the best way to do that, but
It certainly isn't long term. That's why there tends
yeah.
to be a lot of turnover and people, switching companies trying to find a better balance and whatnot, and then most of the time they don't find it. It's unfortunate. I kind of wish I could run my own company
Yeah.
because I see the way they run it and it's baffling to me because it's usually management or the owner, whoever's in charge. Someone in charge is basically saying you need to have the passion like I do, believe in the company, whatever garbage line that they want to spit out there to try and convince you. And I don't have that personality type. Like even running this podcast at all, because I came to you guys with the idea, so I feel a bit of responsibility for that. But it's not on you guys. Like, I came forward with it. That's not my stress. Is like, man, I can't let everybody down. I need to figure out how to do everything, and that's stressful to me, but that's the way it should be. And don't put that on your people you're working with. Does that make any sense? That's kind of a weird.
No, I think it makes
I get
sense.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
if I was running a company, it wouldn't be, well, we need to meet this deadline. You have to stay an extra 40 hours. What?
Oh,
No, that's, as the manager, as the person in charge, that's your job to figure it out within a reasonable, like, system of don't overwork your people and don't put it on them because you didn't plan appropriately. Don't
For
set an
sure.
unrealistic deadline. Like, just straight up. Stop doing that.
yep. Definitely.
But hey, at least
Yeah.
the video games are cool.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
still enjoy them.
I appreciate them. I also, when bugs and stuff, at first knee-jerk reaction, you kind of want to maul at it, like, oh my gosh. But, thinking about the other side, like the developers probably were like raising the issue and, they're like, well, just push it anyway, we'll patch it or whatever.
Mhm.
And they're trying to like, work as hard and do their best under the conditions they're working. So yeah, like when games come out, have a little bit of empathy and think about, there are people behind the code in the game.
Oh yeah.
Yes, of course. Like, I mean, I usually don't get mad at a bug when it happens. I get a little perplexed when there's like, I don't even know how to put it. I guess Call of Duty would be the one where I would bring up the example of I'm pissed off at someone, I just don't know who. But they had, like, in Warzone, they had bugs where there was a bug where you could use your stims over and over and over and over so you could survive in the gas and just win games because you had infinite stims to keep healing yourself. And they patched out that bug, but then they accidentally patched it back in like 3 times.
Oh no.
And I was like, where is your QA? Like, why aren't you guys checking this? I wasn't even necessarily blaming the people doing the code or whatever. Like, it probably wasn't them. It's the fact that no one tested it. And to me, that's management. If you see consistent problems, I immediately think, no, your manager sucks, because a manager should be like, hey, did we double check this? Did we run it through QA? Did we do all these things and make sure that it all works when we put it together? Because obviously you didn't, because it's broken again. And it's the same thing that broke 3 weeks ago. Why is it broken again? Like, that just drives me up a wall. And then when you see, like, the leads on Twitter, I literally saw a tweet where someone was mad and said, why isn't this in the game? I don't understand. It was a professional player saying, why isn't there ranked in Call of Duty? This is supposed to be an esport title. It's been 3 months since the game came out. Why don't we have ranked? That's the core of a competitive game. And they said, you should be thankful we made you a game. I was like,
That's
are you kidding
Wow.
me? Like, that was the
Oh.
attitude. That was one of the lead designers
okay?
said that on Twitter. And I was like,
Yikes.
y'all got a problem.
That's a yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
not professional.
yeah, and then he had to apologize to the player.
Oh,
because he was contractually obligated to not talk smack or do anything like bad because he was an esports player. I think it was Scump. It was like one of the top. He was in the Call of Duty League and all of that. So part of his contract was he couldn't talk down about the game. So he had to apologize. I'm like, you had to apologize to that? Are you kidding me? Like there was no, they were being completely silent. Granted, it was during the pandemic, but you could say like, yo, we get it. This is frustrating. We are working really hard. We're just having so many issues, but we got the game out. I hope people are enjoying it. We'll update you guys when we can about what's going on. Like, just be like that. Not, you should be thankful that we've done anything for you. No, we spent money on this. You have made tens of millions of dollars a week on this game. You should be thankful that you've got such a great paying job to release a broken game and then talk down to your entire audience. Like, what is? Ugh.
should have
Ugh.
kept that in the drafts.
There's that other
Yeah.
side. I think that's probably a more corporate stance and not. I don't know.
Like I said, this was a lead designer. So when you're talking a
Mhm.
company like Activision in a big game like Call of Duty, lead designer is basically like a corporate person. This wasn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't probably in the trenches actually doing a lot of the groundwork. He was probably more of a corporate manager liaison type.
Yeah. Oof.
Because that's just
Yikes.
it's such a big company, hundreds and hundreds of employees. Would you get to I'm the lead designer? But did you?
Oh,
What did you really design? I don't even know if he was a lead designer. It was, because I think at that stage the lead designer isn't actually really doing a bunch of the design. They're just mostly guiding everyone else that is doing the design, if that makes sense.
Reminds me of like the office space person of being like, I'm a people person.
oh
I
boy.
talk to the engineers and the business people. That's what I do.
I'm middle management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I understand the need for a lot of those people.
Oh, for sure.
I've met so many people, and there's a lot of people that code. They are really good at doing like that job. But when it comes to communicating to someone that doesn't know about that stuff and just needs hey, what's going on? How's the work going? You need that middle person that can translate. Because if I was management and I came to a coder and they were like, oh, well, we've got SQL library things and whatever. I don't even know if that's a correct sentence. No clue. But if they could come out with something like that, I'm like, right. So what does that mean? And then so you need someone to translate and communicate.
Yeah.
What a mess
So,
of an industry.
yeah, it is. That was a tangent.
It was a bit of a tangent, but I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the next little talking point we've got was sort of, well, we know we've got our first MMO experience. We both had WoW, or World of Warcraft to say it fully.
Yes, yes.
My first MMO, WoW. Yours was WoW. Clarissa, did you play any MMOs before Final Fantasy?
You know, when you guys were talking about WoW and such, I was thinking in my head, oh my gosh, I forgot to talk about MapleStory. So I think I was in like middle school at the time. One of my friends was like, hey, you should try out this game. It's really fun. It's called MapleStory. So, actually, it was in the summer, so I had time to get hooked. And I went back home after tennis practice and I downloaded the game. Of course, I joined the wrong server, but so I'm like looking
As
for my friend.
as
But
one
I
does
already,
when you start, that's
yeah,
Yeah.
I already sunk too much time in to want to like switch and remake, so I'm just like, I'll just enjoy the game and we'll just like talk about our different experiences. But I played MapleStory for a good while. I was no good at it. I built my character completely wrong. I picked the most expensive job, of course, and I was always poor. Um, but I had a lot of fun with it. Until I couldn't play it anymore because the family computer only had 50 gigabytes of space on the hard drive, and I couldn't install the newest patch at some point, so I had to stop playing.
I like how her family computer, if you can tell the age differences between us,
Oh yeah.
I like how her family computer had 50 gigabytes. And when I
Oh,
started, it was just like tiny little crumb of hard drive and memory.
I don't even remember what our first computer had as a hard drive. It was running Windows 3.1,
Oh no. What did
and
Probably similar boat.
with 3.1 was before 95. And when I tell you, this was a foreign landscape compared to now, because when you turned on the computer, it didn't even boot into Windows. It booted to DOS, and you had to type,
Oh,
you know,
DOS.
/win launch 3.1, whatever. I don't remember the command line, but you actually had to
Yep.
type out what to open to start
Yep.
Windows.
I remember this. The
Yep.
like little green command line. Let's put it in.
It was so exciting, but you could even skip because we would have games on floppy disks. So you didn't have to
Yes.
launch Windows to launch your game. You would just put in the floppy, type the file path for the floppy,
Oh yeah,
and bam, you could play your games.
for sure.
wow.
I remember like a true floppy. Like, you have like your A drive and your B
Mhm.
drive, and then
This is actually
the computer.
why the Windows drive is always the C drive, Clarissa, was because
Yep.
back in the day, your A drive was usually your floppy, and the
Wow.
floppies would say on them /A/this, whatever, in order to launch the proper file in there, because you couldn't see the files, you just had to know.
Oh
So
no.
A and B were always reserved for, I think, floppy, and B drive was, I think, like for second floppy if you had one. You had a
Yeah.
secondary drive, and then C was where your disk went.
I feel very fortunate that I didn't have to experience that.
We
The earliest version of Windows that I think I saw was either 95 or 98. I don't remember, but I would just play like this random like computer game that my mom loved sometimes, like on her laptop. It was a brick, but
Oh
I would
gosh.
play that sometimes.
Back
But
then, that was 2 bricks.
oh yeah.
oh
Those things were so big.
Oh
God.
gosh. They were.
They'd run
But
for
yeah,
like half an hour just with Windows open, nothing else, just the screen.
Oh no.
Yep. I remember. Yeah, just like we had like a container, like a little plastic container that like was like a file sorter for like all of our floppy drives.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm. Mhm.
And like you just labeled them like different games or files you had on it.
Yeah, that little
So you
thing, and
knew.
then you could flip through them like, okay, okay, it's right here. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
there's my little video game. Whatever the
Yep.
heck. My what did they call that thing? Oh my gosh. The clip art? Clip art.
Oh
The little
yeah.
clip arts.
I had like clip art and like Corel Draw and all that.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And then you could
we're
be like,
old.
graphic design is my passion.
Oh no. Open paint, draw some squiggly lines,
Oh
get that
yeah.
fill bucket.
Oh no, man, they had like little stickers that you could like pre-drawn like figures and stuff. They got real
Yeah.
fancy in late Windows 98, and you could get like little animated ones where it would kind of move a little bit.
Yeah. I
Gosh.
mean, I thought I was so cool making cards for people. Like
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it
from
would
like
print it on regular printer paper, and you just had to fold
fold it.
fold it right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember doing something like that like once. I made like a booklet that was about it was you had to fold the paper like 4 times or something, I remember,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to cut it a certain way after you folded it. But I don't remember very much.
Yeah, there was
But
some
I was like,
fancy.
this is so
Yeah.
cool.
Yep. Yep. We are aging ourselves here next.
Yeah, a little bit. I remember having when we got our Windows 95 computer, and I was so excited because it had a CD drive, which meant I could play those games that had CDs.
Oh yeah. Better
And
graphics.
oh yeah, big time. I think that missed.
Oh, Mist.
Playing, yeah,
We had Mist. It was great.
got missed in there, and 100 megahertz. That's when I started getting into the computer stuff. I wish my parents had kind of, pushed that along a bit, because I was like, man, we got 100 megabyte or 100 megahertz on our processor. So cool. Windows 95. I don't have to type anymore. Look, it's got, this much RAM, and I was learning all this stuff about the computers. I was so excited. It had a 1 gigabyte hard drive. 1
Wow.
gigabyte. I can't even.
It's
And
big because that's why we had so many floppy drives because there weren't big hard drives.
yeah,
Oh,
1
gosh.
gigabyte was like, whoa. That was a lot. It was a lot of
Yep.
space. It took us years to fill it. I mean, to give you an idea, like the Super Nintendo cartridges or regular Nintendo cartridges, the entire games fit. There was like 256 kilobytes of data.
Whoa.
That was all the space you had. And
That explains a lot.
yeah, that's why you could get some really janky stuff because it was tiny. It was so small. And Super Nintendo was only a little bit bigger.
Man.
So, like, that was what games were like back then. PC, you could use like a couple megabytes because floppy disks were bigger. They were, how many megabytes was a floppy drive? Like 8 megabytes? I don't remember, but it was a couple megabytes, let's say. So that
I have
was,
a picture
whoa.
of a floppy drive, and it says 1.44 megabytes.
Yes, 1.44 was it was a 3.5-inch 1.44. That's what it was.
That's kind of hilarious. I feel like I have like just image files that are bigger than that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you could take a screenshot with Windows snipping tool. That's bigger than that.
Ooh.
It's
Yeah, we old.
yeah. It's incredible just thinking about where we were. I remember
really
getting that gateway PC and the cow box.
Oh my god.
Oh
Yeah, we had one of those. That was the 500 megahertz computer. Oh my gosh. I
And then
was
And then when the internet came around, oh buddy, that modem, let's fire it up.
the days of trying to play multiplayer, Command and Conquer Red Alert specifically was where I started. And in order to connect, there wasn't like a lobby that you went to. Like nowadays, you had to call your friend on the phone and say, hey, I'm going to connect to you. Make sure no one else answers the phone because you had to call their house and answer with your computer in order to connect.
Wow.
And so sometimes you would answer and then your mom would be on the other end and you could hear her through the
Yeah.
modem. Hello,
What?
winner. Oh my gosh.
That's so funny. I didn't know you could actually like hear people if they picked up.
Yeah,
That's
that noise that you hear was actually a
Yeah.
little speaker on there, and so if someone else like picked up the phone, you would hear them through the modem.
That's
Yep.
scary.
And
Oh
then
my
your friend would call, and then they would try to yell through the 30 seconds, like, if you can hear me, I will call you again. Do not answer the phone. I got it this time. I'm calling with the computer next time. Answer, and then they would hang up, and
So
hopefully
chaotic.
it was absolute chaos. It could take like a half hour to finally get into a lobby where no one picked up the phone.
Man.
Ended up getting a second landline
Wow.
for it.
I begged.
Because my parents just got tired. They got tired of it.
I begged for one. Like, can we please get a second phone line, please? I'll do whatever you want.
Oh gosh. Yep. Modem days.
And then finally, when we got DSL and the better technologies that weren't phones,
Yep.
so good.
Amazing. But yeah, even in college, I was just like, I was in college. I started college in 2004, 5, just playing on this little, not little, they were huge back then. Laptops were huge. This huge like Dell business computer in college because there's nothing like, it was a brick, and I was trying to play games on it, and it was just terrible.
Oh man.
Oh,
I hadn't even heard of a GPU until like 2009, 2010. I'm like, oh, there's like you can get a GPU. Oh shoot.
my parents did do one thing. They would get me PC Gamer magazine. So
nice.
I knew about hardware, and that I was able to guide our gateway purchase, and it had the TNT 32 graphics card.
Is that a good one?
It was at the time. It was a
graphics card.
TNT2. It was TNT2 32, or 64, whatever. It was the top of the line graphics card at the time. It was
Ooh.
the best. The 32 man, it had 32 megabytes of onboard RAM, which was the most. It was like, wow, what a graphics card. And I was gaming hard. I could play StarCraft at a decent FPS finally. I was
Oh my
very
God.
pumped about this. But I knew about graphics cards at least, so.
Yeah, I didn't know about it until, when I first started playing WoW, I'm like, okay, I'm playing on my computer, it's fine. And then I just like, man, why does it run so like I kind of get motion sickness. It's a little choppy. Like, is this how it's supposed to be? And then someone's like, oh, you probably are just using your integrated graphics card on your motherboard. You should probably check out a GPU. And I'm like, oh, what is that? And then here we are today. I'm like building my own stuff and like swapping parts, and it's a beautiful life.
Yeah, I remember when I was playing WoW when I started, it was on a Dell Inspiron BS,
Oh no.
computer. And the Walmart special.
Oh.
And I was raiding on that thing because when I got into WoW, this was during Cataclysm. By like the second patch when I was playing, I was in 2 raid teams and I was healing and running DPS like 4 or 5 nights a week. I was raiding, like heroic progression stuff. I was hardcore, just going hard in WoW, all with integrated graphics. And basically I could raid because it would only dip down to like 20 FPS, so I could kind of raid, but I couldn't run LFR when LFR came out because that was like it had to be
Oh,
25 man, and
Mhm.
my FPS would be like 3. And it was awful. But somehow, because I would practice on the practice dummies like for hours to get my rotations perfect, I could still, because it would register my inputs, so I was still like top DPS even though I couldn't see because I was just muscle memory doing my rotations.
Gosh.
And it was a bit rewarding, but it was also like I'd like to see what's happening
Yeah.
because sometimes I couldn't dodge mechanics because I just didn't know when it was happening.
Oh, I mean, that sounds familiar today.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Man.
no,
Oh
it's a little
gosh.
different, but
I'm sure it is, but sometimes with Final Fantasy
that
14,
random lag every once in a while, and it's just.
gosh, it's a little painful.
Or my sneeze the other day. For those that don't know, we were raiding. We were doing Uwu Prog, and right when a mechanic popped up, I sneezed. So, closed my eyes and turned my head and had no idea which way to run. So there was a brief moment of panic. It was a very unfortunately timed sneeze.
But you
Oh,
lived,
you
I
right?
did.
did.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
I blurrily, like, kind of as I was turning my head back, I squinted and I could
Oh
see
my
where
god.
you guys were running. So I just started pushing the button to run with you guys.
Oh
But I couldn't tell where I was supposed to actually go. I just fortunately could make out people are running that way. I'm gonna follow them. I hope I ran in time.
Oh
Down to that muscle memory,
oh
Ugh.
my god.
So
So,
Maple
mhm,
Story was yours. We were WoW. We've gone over
yeah,
that.
I guess we could kind of fast forward. Well, maybe not fast forward, but like Final Fantasy, Squeenix, either as a single game or the MMO, or what drew you in to Final Fantasy?
Well, 14 or just the series? Like what got us started on the series?
Either way, some people have like played the Final Fantasy series and like
Hmm.
14 was like a natural progression for them, and some people like, oh, I like MMOs, just hopped into Final Fantasy 14 and then maybe discovered other Final Fantasy like standalone games. So how did we get here to Final Fantasy 14?
Well, as far as I know, I want Clarissa to start
Okay,
because I
yeah.
think she has the shortest experience with Final Fantasy.
So I am essentially playing the games backwards because 14 was the first Final Fantasy game that I've actually like played. Before 14, I had watched like a Let's Play of Crisis Core, and I remember liking Zach, but like that was pretty much it. Um, I know a handful of people, kind of like around the peak of the pandemic, a lot of people were playing 14, and I'm like, oh god, it's an MMO. I'm gonna get stuck to this. I don't know if I should try playing it. I was like obsessed with MapleStory when I was still playing it, and then like a couple of people were like, "Hey, you should play with us. It'll be fun." I'm like, "Okay, I'll give it a try." And I did, and boy, oh boy, I'm hooked. Um, I'm honestly like, if I had a PS5, I would play 16, because now that I know more about Final Fantasy because of 14, I'm more interested in like the other games, and I'm just kind of like currently some of my other friends are playing some of the other games in the Final Fantasy series, and I'm just kind of absorbing some of that knowledge and like some of the cool stuff that they like run through in their playthroughs. And it's just like, these are actually very good games. I'm surprised I like didn't get into this sooner. Honestly, like I don't know why. If it was like a console exclusive sort of deal, that might have been, because I've been like primarily like Nintendo consoles this whole time. Because like before 14, the only Square Enix game that I had played was Chrono Trigger, but they were Square back then, so like I don't even know if that counts.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
counts.
Yeah.
The original Final Fantasies were Square. It
Okay.
was
See, I didn't even know
Squaresoft.
that.
Yeah.
Squaresoft.
Yeah. So the Chrono Trigger company was the same exact company that made the OG Final Fantasies. They eventually merged with. It was Enix. Was it just Enix? I don't remember what Enix was.
I don't know. I don't know the whole history. I just know it went from like
Yeah.
Squaresoft, Square Enix. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, sure. Companies buying companies.
Yeah. It was. I remember when Square merged with Enix. Well, Squaresoft merged with Enix, and I was like, man, are they gonna mess with like the Final Fantasy series? But it turned out Square was just the dominant force in the merger. So no, they weren't gonna touch Final Fantasy, because that was like, it's still to this day the baby of the company and has been since basically the first one, 1985, when they first made Final Fantasy.
Well, it's so funny because back then, like the reason why it's called Final Fantasy is because it was going to be Square's like last title before the company went under, and that's why
Yeah,
it's named
I,
Final Fantasy.
I was gonna say
Wow.
that. Yeah, it was like their Hail Mary home run. Hey, we're going out of business. YOLO. Let's make the game of our lives. Let's just make it. And then it turned out it was enough to carry a company for the next 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
Well, then they knocked it out of the park with 7 for sure. That was a hit.
Well, they were,
Mhm.
because they were actually nailing home runs with 1 through 6. Except for 2. Well, people loved 2. I hated it. A lot of people now hate it. It's it's a controversial Final Fantasy. Um in my books anyway. But those were all on Nintendo systems. 7 became the like, hey, we're the real deal, because it was the first 3D Final Fantasy and it was on the PlayStation. And yeah, it kind of took the RPG world by storm, because holy cow, it's 3D. Look at this thing. This game is so cool. It's incredible. Wow. And then I got started with Final Fantasy with 8. So I kind of missed the 7 bus, but 8 hooked me. I loved 8. I played 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 2. I haven't beaten all of them, but I've played them. 10 2 probably the least, but whatever. I've dabbled with 11 a little, like recently, because I couldn't play it back in the day. What else? A bit of 13. I don't know. I kind of fell off with 12, 13, and then yeah, we got 14 now. I did go back and do the no pixel remasters and played so far 1. Didn't like 2. I quit after like 3 hours. And then I've been working a little bit through 3. And that's where I am so far. I've played most of the Final Fantasies.
So what made you hop into Final Fantasy XIV?
Well, I was playing some WoW because I was off and on with WoW. I was slowly getting disenchanted with the game, which was annoying because I had issues with it, but I loved MMOs. And people online would be like, oh, well, everyone's just over the MMO genre. WoW is fine. And I thought, no, it's not. it's it's not okay. And I believe it was Stan. Yeah, it was Stan. It was like, yo, you ever thought about playing Final Fantasy XIV? Well, I was like, I tried it a while ago and I didn't get into it, but I didn't have anyone to play with, so I can give it another shot. And then he was like, here's my referral code.
Oh my
And
god.
and the rest is history. I've been playing now a year and a half ish, and I've got over 3,000 hours.
Yeah.
So, been playing a lot.
Yeah, I hear that. Let's see. So for me, I was able to sneak because younger I wasn't allowed to play video games, so I was able to sneak Final Fantasy IX when it came out. And my sister's boyfriend at the time had a PlayStation 1, 2, I don't remember. But he had it, and so I would just like sneak play it, and I just ran through it as fast as I could because I was like, this could go away at any moment. I got to finish this. And so I just completely, if I could have been on like games done quick, that might have been, that's what it felt like at least.
Speed run.
Speed running Final Fantasy IX. That's what I was doing. I did that, and then obviously took a pause after that until post college life, and played Final Fantasy X, 13, 13-2 on PS3. I did not play 11, although a lot of my college friends were like obsessed with 11 because they were huge MMO players. Like Ultima Online or what was the other one back then?
EverQuest was a big one at that point.
EverQuest,
Yeah.
yes. It was like Ultima Online and EverQuest. These guys were hardcore gamers. So they were really into Final Fantasy XI, like staying up till 3 a.m. to like camp a boss and raid and everything. And I'm pretty sure they probably missed class too for like
Yeah,
Oh
stuff
no.
I was gonna
world
say,
bosses.
like at that stage of the MMO history, when people say, "Oh well, I miss the old school MMO," like there was no such thing as being casual because
No.
of like not even just the grind, because so much of the grind was waiting until 3 a.m. for a boss to spawn and hope you got the tag.
Yep.
Like it wasn't grinding because there was grinds, don't get me wrong. You had to grind, but it was also sitting there waiting, hoping you got something that you were waiting 6 hours to get.
Yeah. Like imagine if like the S ranks, we didn't have all these communication channels that we do now, and that the first person that tagged it got the rewards, and that was it. Like the first group that tagged it got the rewards, and nobody else.
There was definitely stuff like that in Maple Story that I had to deal with, and it was insane. It was so bad.
Maple
Oh
Story
my
had a lot
god.
of. I didn't play a lot of Maple Story, but I loved MMOs, so I tried to kind of keep up with a bunch. And yeah, they had a lot of old school systems because I think the game at its core is kind of old school. It's older. It's been around for over a decade.
Yeah, I was no good at it. I didn't know what was going on, but I was just making my own game out of it, I guess.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
Remember
actually
the
a thing
story.
about Final Fantasy XI. I think my friend had tried it, but I couldn't play it because I had AOL internet,
Oh boy.
which required a login in order to get to the internet, and so it didn't play well with consoles in a lot of games because yeah, it was just a pain. I hated it. I was so happy when we were done with that. But also, you needed a expansion on the back of your PS2. I don't know if you guys ever saw those.
No.
There's a big hole in the old PS2s. Well, it had like a door on it, but there was like a big gap where there was just nothing in the back of it. And it was meant for an expansion slot that would have a little hard drive in it. and internet connectivity or whatever, and that's what you needed to play Final Fantasy XI on the PlayStation.
Wow.
So if you didn't have that on top
Geez.
of the proper internet, like you just couldn't play it. And so that's where I was. I never got to try it when it came out.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I did not play 11. But yeah, 13 to 15. And yeah, so for 14, I loved MMOs. I loved my time in WoW. Just raiding with people and getting to know people on a weekly basis and just laughing, have a good time. Um, growing close to essentially strangers when you first meet them, like just random like Joe Schmo from the internet.
Yeah.
Playing this like orc warrior, you're like, hey buddy. But yeah, growing to like be friends with people you've met randomly from all over the world.
Yeah.
And so, WoW, I was playing WoW off and on. Like I was pretty steady with WoW from vanilla to through mop, and then I was pretty intermittent after that because I was like, I'll see, I'll dip my toes in case, that old magic is revived and it's a great expansion. Well, spoilers, that didn't happen with WoW for me. I tried the new expansions when they came out. They were okay. They weren't great for me. And then the last one, Shadowlands, just the Torghast grind, the raiding scene, the PvP, it just wasn't enjoyable for me. And it was hard to even have like multiple characters or alts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, you know what? I had a friend say, why don't you try Final Fantasy XIV? Because he had been playing it for a bit. I'm like, all right, I'll try it. And so, I think in the end of 2021, I started playing Final Fantasy XIV. And man, it's just been a wild ride since then. I've clocked so many hours and probably I haven't done my played or what is it called in Final
Slash
Fantasy?
playtime,
Playtime?
I believe.
Slash playtime. Okay, I haven't ever checked that because
No.
I'm a little scared.
I only
I'm a
know
little
because I
scared.
have it on Steam. So
Oh,
Oh,
unfortunately, it keeps reminding me exactly how many hours I have
oh my
opened the
gosh.
game.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to know, but it's been like, whew, I've spent a lot of hours in there just between leveling things, doing relic weapons, raids, old raids, the MSQ alone, going from
yeah.
a Realm Reborn all the way through like Shadowbringers into Endwalker that's a lot of hours.
Mm-hmm.
No lie, that's a lot of hours. And then just between raiding and hanging out with people, it's just a lot of hours. But I love it. It's
It's so
great.
fun.
It, I mean, everyone's seen the meme of, have you heard of the critically acclaimed game, Final Fantasy XIV with the free trial? And I am one of those people
Same.
that are like, hey, you like MMOs and games. You should give this a try. There's a free trial. Like, just nothing to lose. Give it a try.
I need to check up on one of my high school friends that I did the speech to a couple of weeks ago because he said he was getting a new gaming PC. I'm like, hey,
Have you
you should
heard?
tell him his
Have
game.
you heard?
I haven't heard back from him yet about it, so I'm gonna have to remind him.
Oh
Like,
no.
hey.
I just realized we're like the door-to-door Jehovah's Witness or something.
I mean,
They're like,
but
hey, have you heard the good news? Final Fantasy XIV has a free trial.
All the way
it's
up
a
to
good
Heaven's Word.
game.
It's
Ah,
there's no time limit. Come
No
on
time
in.
limit either. Get to level 60. Enjoy it.
Grind
how
everything you
dare
want.
you?
It's great.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh.
it really is so good. I had tried it when I first tried it. I got it in a humble bundle. Just, one other thing that I had gotten. And I tried it and I was like, this seems kind of cool. I didn't like the way the zones were broken up because I say broken up. Because WoW, you could just walk to the zones and you could see them. There it is right there. I'll just walk over this hill and bam, you're in the next zone. It was all seamless. It was really one big world. Where Final Fantasy felt like I was in a little chunk of a map, and then I had to go to the next little chunk, and where was the in
Yeah.
between? Like that was kind of missing for me, and I was kind of playing alone, so I don't like to play these games alone. And I was like, I don't really. Am I gonna meet new people? I don't know. So I just quit. I think it was during Stormblood when I did that. But I literally had leveled a white mage to like, it wasn't a white mage yet. It was a conjurer, and I think it was like 14 or something. I don't know. It didn't get very far, and I just kind of stopped because I thought it looks cool, but I don't know. I'm alone. I don't really want to play this game alone. And then came back to Final Fantasy XIV, obviously later when I had friends that were playing.
Yeah,
But
it's a lot more fun with people.
yeah, because like in WoW, I feel it when I talk to people. So many people lost the magic around after MOP.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I had played it during, what was it? Burning Crusade. I knew of WoW before that. My friend was really into it, and I had seen it, and I was like, man, I wish I could play it, but like paying for the sub and all of that because my parents weren't into it. My friend who was into it, had the advantage that his dad was super into World of Warcraft and played the game. So to him, it was like, oh, you want to play too? Sure. Like, no problem. Here you go. But my parents, it would be like, hey, can you pay $15 a month so I can play this
Oh,
one
boy.
video game? Like that would not compute. That was
Huh?
so
You
yeah.
just can't buy the
Yeah,
game?
what the hell? I have to pay no, what this isn't a cell phone plan. The hell? Yeah. So subscription fees weren't really a thing back then. Now we have a subscription fee for friggin' everything you do.
God.
You can
Yeah.
pay subscription fees to, there's like gas stations and coffee places where you can get a sub fee and get, X drinks a month or whatever. And like everything's got a subscription now. So it was a different time back then. And I finally got to give it a shot because I was an adult. Well, I was kind of an adult. I was like fresh out of high school, whatever. I got kind of into it in like Burning Crusade. I gave it another shot. But then my friend he was a jerk to me. I remember I kept asking him questions because there wasn't resources like today. Sujek
Yeah.
knows, like in those early days,
Yeah,
man,
it was.
do I need to buy like all of these abilities? These are expensive. I'm running out of gold. Like, do I need to buy all of this? Is this quest worth doing? Is this an MSQ? What is this? Like,
Oh, boy.
you were just kind of thrown to the wolves. I had no idea. So I would ask him questions like, hey, what the heck is this thing? Or what's that? I can't find this quest because nothing was labeled. And
Man.
at some point, because I mean, I wasn't questioning him all the time. I just had questions. And at one point, I asked him a question, and he was like, look, I have more important things to do. I'm not going to sit here and help you. I was like,
Oh.
what? Okay, bye. And I literally logged out of the game and never played again. I deleted it. And that was
Oh.
it.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I came back for Cataclysm with, believe it or not, the same friend.
Oh,
What?
boy.
Oh no.
The same guy. But this
Oh,
time I
no.
was like, you know what? If he's going to be the same guy, I don't even care. I'm going to play this game because I want to play this damn game.
Yeah.
So I played, and oh my gosh, I sunk in the hours. I enjoyed PvP so much once I got into it. Like, PvP kind of carried the game for me, because in MOP, I wasn't very into PvE. It just started, because there was so much stuff. Like, the dailies was just, I didn't want to do 40 dailies every day just to stay kept up with everybody. Because that's kind of
It
where you
prob-
were at a point.
Even with PvP, like you had to cap your conquest every week. If you had multiple characters, you had to do that too. And like capping conquest took time. And then doing your dailies to get whatever thing they had to, dailies. Pain.
I remember doing less dailies for PvP because you didn't need all of them. There was
Yeah.
like a few reps you could grind for certain enchantments that were good, but that was about it. Like, it wasn't a big deal, not like PvE where you kind of needed everyone for something. But The conquest grind wasn't too bad because I also had a group of friends where we'd play arenas and just like grind out our weekly caps on day 1 and be done. But I had a good time with that. But after that, like, I didn't really raid anymore. I raided in Legion briefly and in Warlords of Draenor briefly. But I mostly PvP'd every time I came back. That was my main focus.
I mostly PvP too. I raided in Wrath. Ice Crown Citadel was a great raid. I loved it. We did a 10 person, I should say, 10-person version of it. And that's pretty much all the raiding I did in WoW, like in Wrath, and that was it. And then mostly just PvP. I guess, yeah, fast forward to Final Fantasy XIV in the raiding scene. If some people don't know, Final Fantasy doesn't really have a strong PvP community. It's not the best. It's a little like some people really enjoy it, and props to them for really enjoying PvP. I myself cannot get into it. It's a little interesting. I would like to play it with my friends.
Oh,
That's the
please.
main. Please.
That's yeah.
Please.
Like, I'd want to play it with my friends, like Crystalline Conflict with my friends. Casual
That would
is
be
fine.
fun.
That would be fun. Yoshi, please.
Yes. Please, senpai. I'll call you whatever you want, please.
But I think a lot of people really enjoy Final Fantasy in the raiding scene. Either casually doing unsynced minimum eye level older raids, ultimates, savage raiding, trials. I think, and as much as like sweaty high end gamers like to be sometimes, it really is accessible to most people.
Here's the main thing I noticed, because what killed it in WoW a lot for me was every time there was a new expansion, there was a new system and a new thing, and then all this like stuff that I didn't want to do just to have enough power to raid. Like you mentioned, like with Torghast and everything, it completely killed Shadowlands. I refused to play it because I couldn't have alts. I just couldn't grind everything. It was annoying. I had to do things I didn't want to do anything. I had to do them to PvP, I had to do them to PvE. No, I don't want to do it. So I quit. But Final Fantasy doesn't change their systems. Like what you did in Stormblood is pretty much the same things you had to do in Shadowbringers and the same things you had to do in Endwalker, which was, get your currency by running expert roulettes and 90 roulette and or 80 roulette, whatever, the max level. And you get your points, you do the thing, you go to the raid, you get your token, you get the thing, and then that's it. Next expansion, do the same things with the new content, get your gear, done. It wasn't these convoluted systems or this new thing, or I can't imagine if they took like an endless dungeon and said, hey, you need this in order to raid.
Oh my gosh.
People would
The
quit.
community would maul. It'd be an uproar.
I mean,
Oh
that
yeah.
kind of reminds me of the Manderville weapons. Because everyone's like, what do you mean I have to go through that whole quest line just to get a weapon?
Yeah,
And
and
it's
it's
like,
not even a
that's
necessary. You
interesting.
do not need that
Yeah,
at
that's
all.
true.
Like, I mean, it's cool. Obviously, I want it. I'm gonna do it. But yeah, the community kind of molded over side content they had to do for the other side content. You what?
Yeah.
Relic weapons are not necessary.
Yeah, they're not. They're mostly cosmetic. I guess they are technically BIS at the final stage. I believe the final stage is BIS for the end of the expansion, but
yeah,
it's barely BIS. It's just a little tiny bit extra.
yeah.
I wouldn't remotely call it necessary. No one would require that to run a Savage group because it's not even going to be out when the Savage tier is current. So who cares?
I would, so it's completely optional, and yet the community was still like, I'm not gonna go back and run these Manderville quests. This is ridiculous. And it's just
like they were personally wounded.
Yeah.
You don't have to there, bruh. Like you don't have to if you don't want to. And that's kind of the nice thing with Final Fantasy rating is like every tier, everyone just gets like this crafted set of gear, which keeps the economy going, and like there is very real incentive to have max level crafters and gatherers,
Mhm.
so that every raid tier, there's a whole crafting set that you can get that you need to raid for the most part. And
Mm.
so yeah, if you want to raid, you can just get your gear and you're set. Like the world racers, average person raider wearing the crafted set. It's everyone's on like an even playing field then.
And I
Yep.
wouldn't even, you don't even need it. You'd need
You
it
don't.
if
It holds.
you're trying to do like your week 1 prog.
Yeah.
You're
For
kind
sure.
of definitely very very strongly recommend you get
Strong.
that gear.
Oh, yeah.
But you can even do it without, just because you can get, if you're
You
not
get
looking to
normal
clear the
gear.
whole, yeah, if you're not looking to clear most of the tier week 1, you don't need it. You do if you want to do hardcore prog, if you're going to be clearing, because we cleared 2 fights in the first week, and I don't think we would have without crafted gear.
Yeah, most of us
Definitely
were
made an impact.
fully crafted and pentamelded.
Yeah,
Just I think for the pure DPS check alone, but over
Mhm.
time
because you can
you'd
get
get
your
your
currency gears and stuff, and you can fill
yeah.
in, and you'll be fine.
Yep. And it's not even that hard to get. Like currency gear, do like an expert dungeon a week, which is like what, 15, 20 minutes,
Yep.
and do like a few of those a week. You'll get your currencies
I think
and you can get
you
good gear.
you cap with like 5 experts, and that's if
Some
that's only
yeah.
the only thing you do. If that's all you did, you would cap. If you just did 1 expert a day,
Yep.
which is like 20 minutes tops.
Easy. And that's just like entry into like high-end rating scene. So
Hmm.
I look at WoW and all these people
Oh my
sort of
gosh.
grinding these Mythic Plus keys and key depletion cry, plus hoping something in their vault is good for the week, or that one drop they need for Biss out of a Mythic Plus that nobody will run with them. It's painful.
It was awful. I remember trying to do that system, and if you didn't have a group, it was chaos. And I can't stand when I mention this to people and they're like, I played WoW all the time and I never ran into that issue. Yeah, I don't think you did. Because this was a daily occurrence for me to run into some guys just malding in a leveling dungeon. It was daily. It was regular that you would get people ditching your keys or getting mad that the hunter pulled 2 seconds before you hit the mob, or whatever. Like, it was just constant rage about every little thing in the game, because the game was designed to like pit the players against each other and to have a lot of mistrust, because a random person could ruin your day so
Yeah,
easily.
it's not the best. But yeah, just trying to get Biss and WoW just seems very hard.
Hmm.
And in Final Fantasy XIV, there's definitely there is some work to put towards it, but it isn't RNG totally. Like you can get some bad rolls and it might take you 16 weeks to get your Biss, but you'll get it.
Yeah, in the absolute worst case scenario, yeah, I'm thinking,
Yeah, like you'd have to lose
yeah,
you'd have
you'd
to
have
get
to, if you're the last person to get your gear. Yeah, it's really only 8 weeks if you're clearing every week,
yeah, if you're
Yeah.
clearing well, that's
but it depends. But
yeah. But yeah, I think
a
and
couple
it
months
maybe
of being consistent, everyone should be BIS.
well, that's in a
Oh,
static
that's 8
setting.
weeks. That's 8 weeks. Yeah,
Some people do Party Finder and they just have the worst luck, and it will take them,
that's
you
true.
know,
It would be 16 to get your books. Yeah,
weeks, 16 weeks to
Yeah.
get your Biss because
but
you
that's
lost
That's
it
better. I
every day.
remember grinding on my shaman and WoW and not getting one thing I needed after like, it was like 3 months.
Oh
And
God.
I did not
16
get
weeks
my
is
piece, and
wild.
there was no coverage. There was no way for me to buy it. I couldn't get it. I just didn't have a piece.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, I mean, you're guaranteed to have it at like the most would be 16 weeks. Most people will get their Biss like within 8 weeks.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
And even
So-
then, there's still like other pieces of gear you can have that will fill in just fine. Like you're not being held back much by not having BIS.
No, and the DPS checks you're not that held back from not having BIS either.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
I mean, the fights are designed around, the world firsters can do it in that crafted gear. Like
Yep.
literally day one, they can
They
do the whole
do.
tier. So as a casual who's obviously not the best, you'll be able to clear after a few weeks with all of the other gear.
Yep, for sure. And that's what I appreciate about the Final Fantasy rating scene.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for us right now, well, now that we're talking about the rating scene, all of us have finished the current Savage tier, which is nice. We started out a very casual static, and we didn't finish the 6.0 Savage tier until the odd number patch, right
Man.
before 6.2 came out. And so now that we're done pretty early comparatively, it's been really nice. And we're almost to the ultimate weapon. What is it called? Ultima's weapon refrain? Or ultimate weapon? Uwu? What does Uwu
I
stand?
don't know what it
I
stands
think it
for. I
stands
just say
for Ultima Weapon Ultimate.
Weapon.
Oh.
Okay. Ultimate weapon ultimate. We're hopefully gonna clear that tomorrow, and that'll be our
Fingers
first ultimate
crossed.
that we've cleared, because we all started raiding at the beginning of Endwalker, and so this will be the first ultimate we've cleared. We've been watching, we've been watching the world race.
Oh.
But yeah, we're starting to dip our toes into ultimates and progressing Savage quicker, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, satisfying.
We started strong in our group. I'm in a separate raid group from them. We started so strong in the first 2 weeks. We had all first three fights dead. And we're like, man, we're doing great. And then we spent like 6 grueling weeks on P8S. And it was awful. A lot of us were not having any more fun after that long of just being stuck.
Yeah, I think P8S especially was just hard for people. But essentially it's 2 bosses, right? It's 2 bosses that you have to learn. 2 fights you have to learn. With a lot of coordination and body checks and not very forgiving. So we kind of had a similar thing with P8S where it was, we blew through 5 through 7 and we kind of slowed down on the progression, and I think some people were feeling sort of the drag. And I get it, but as a raid leader, I pretty much anytime there's like a door boss and a final boss, I just say it's going to take 1 month for the door boss, 1 month for the final boss, and that's pretty much where we were, because like you guys, we blew through 5 through 7, and then 8 was kind of the slog.
You remember that because I felt like we had a little group first, clear race going because we were only like a day ahead of you guys on each of our clears or something. It felt like a race. You guys were nipping at our heels the whole time, and I was like, oh, we got to stay ahead. Got to keep it tight. Let's go. We got to win. It felt like a cool little, almost not a world first race, obviously. We were not at that level at all, but just, like a little friendly race that we had going unofficially, and it was cool,
sure.
but then 8 hit.
Oh,
Yeah.
the wall.
That was the sad thing was it wasn't even like I guess I say it's sad, but we couldn't blame anyone. It wasn't like one person held us back. It was just someone, a random person in the group. Like could have been me, could have been someone else, could have been another person. Who knows? Someone just messed up, and if anyone messed up, it was a wipe.
Pretty much.
And oh no, so much of that. So
yeah, I think so. When the first raid tier Endwalker, Asphodelos, I think the static breaker was P3S. You know, the
Oh yeah.
Phoenix. That was a static
Broke ours,
breaker.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I think for this tier, P8S was the static breaker.
Yeah, 8 was rough. Which is kind of weird because when we joined the new group, P3S, we beat when a few of us, because a few of us from the first raid group joined that one, and we beat P3S like the second day we were with them. And then we beat P4S completely the next week.
Wow.
So it only took us like 4 days together and we finished the tier. So it was weird to go from that experience of rapidly clearing to hitting this random wall in P8S and just
Yeah.
not having that, like, yeah, we're killing it quickly because we had just experienced that in
Yeah.
the first one. So it was just like, yeah, it was so different. It was demoralizing.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say that.
But hopefully
It's
next
hard.
year hopefully we all do a little bit better. Everyone, just because it's not fun when it drags out that long.
No, but I think, I don't know, for me, I guess maybe from a different perspective from raid leading, I try and keep the positivity going, saying we are making progress, we're more consistent on these earlier mechs. It'll pay off in the end. Like, I know it feels like we keep wiping to the same things, but we're getting better at these previous things. And just kind of keeping that positive mindset and setting realistic goals. It's really easy to look at, these streamers, these world racers that are clearing the tier in, day 1, day 2, week 1, whatever. But that's most of them, that's their job. That's what they do, or they take off like 2 weeks of work to do it. And we're not those people. We are the people that are only rating like 2 hours, like a couple times a week. So I think managing expectations and just knowing that we're putting in a lot less hours than that. And a lot of Final Fantasy raiders are not those people. So to compare yourself with them probably isn't good because, I think most of the bulk of raiders are just not that. They're not world racers.
And yeah, I've never felt, how do I want to put it? I feel like I don't get demoralized thinking about, oh well, the world firsters did it, because I've kind of played sort of to that level. Like when I played FIFA, we beat the #1 team in the world on my squad that I made. I was the leader of this FIFA club and we beat the #1 team in the world. And like, I remember the hours we spent practicing together and grinding and going over everything and doing all that stuff. Granted, it was soccer, not raiding, but it was that same level of playing. And I know I'm not playing at that level. I'm not practicing at that level in Final Fantasy. So having that experience, I don't have that expectation to be super fast. And I think some people that haven't put in the hours it takes to be like that don't realize that, yeah, we should be several weeks behind what they're doing.
Yeah. And that's, I think, I think for us, when we put out the goal of clearing before the odd number patch, which is, I don't know, how many months after was it like 3 months after
3-ish, yeah.
Yeah, 3 months. I think that's perfectly reasonable, comfy, uh, and we just don't want to get, I'd hate to have somebody burn out on the game that they've loved previously just because like they've burned out on raid. I'd be so sad to hear that.
That's where I was. I didn't want to play for a little bit, which is, yeah.
Yeah.
I hit that burnout stage and didn't want to play Final Fantasy.
Oh.
Which was unfortunate. It was just, I guess our expectation, it was mostly built on the fact of just how quickly we had cleared the tier before and how consistent the group was during that. So to suddenly hit the way we did was just jarring and frustrating. Yeah, I don't think I was the only one getting a bit burnt out on that, but I joined the Uwu group, unfortunately.
What do you mean?
And here you are.
Yeah, here I am. I had joined. I kind of told you guys briefly earlier, but yeah, I like signed up because I didn't think you guys needed me. But I was like, I don't want to be like completely not participating because I feel like I haven't really been around for events because I've been burnt out. So I'll just throw my name in, just like, have you need me? LOL, they don't. They'll never hit me back. And then you were like, hey, you're healing.
Oh.
And I was like, well, guess I'm doing it. I signed up.
Yep.
I did this. Okay.
Yep.
Crap.
Crap.
But it's doing fine.
Yep.
I'm slowly starting to feel it again because we are making actual progress. I came into it with a very low expectation anyway because it's an ultimate and, not everyone, none of us had run it in months. So it's like, we'll get there when we get there. And
Yeah.
I went in, I shouldn't say like, I don't expect anything from this group. I just, in general, had my expectations low. I just didn't have like we better clear in a month. Like there was nothing like that in my head. I just had the expectation of we're gonna prog it and we'll see how it goes. And so
Yep.
slowly that's kind of, as we're getting nearer to the end of it, I don't know, it's kind of revitalized me a little bit with the game. Like I'm actually willingly playing it more. Because I stopped for a little bit. I was literally just raiding, and then I barely did anything in the game. Just didn't want to play.
Yeah. I think Final Fantasy is a good game designed around, like, if you want to take a break, perfectly fine. Come back, catch up on all the things, like, fall in love with it again. I think it's a great game where you can just, like, take a pause, come back, and you don't feel that FOMO all the time or anything like that.
Yeah, because we have alts, and I've let Baby Nox fall to the wayside. That's actually the name of my alt. For those that don't know, I have a little Lalafell named Baby Nox, and gosh, he fell behind like 2 patches, and I've slowly started catching him up, and it's very quick. I'm not like lagging behind too bad. So it is very casual friendly.
Yeah. Yep. And so, yeah, I guess right now I'm kind of in the mindset of like watching the top raiders. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, but they're putting in like 16-hour days, and it's just,
Yeah.
that's
Their
absolutely
weekly like
wild.
time input is lower than our few months.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they're, because I was even saying like they're doing things. They have like the 9th man. They have other people watching the streams, taking screenshots for them so they can analyze how big AoEs are and counting.
Yeah.
How do you think anyone figured out that you in Uwu need to stand at the 4th marker on the edge of the arena for your safe spot during predation or whatever? It's because they literally took screenshots as they died.
Yeah, and someone
And
noticed that glyph.
yeah, they sat there and counted the glyphs and were like, yo, if we stand at that 4th one, it's safe here. Let's try that again. And then like they figured out that that 4th one is always the safe one. So
Yeah.
like we're not at that level. Like, I mean,
No.
don't get me wrong. It would be so cool to have a group where we could do that and analyze screenshots and do all of that. But it is a lot of work that most people don't want to do or have
Well,
the time to
and
do. Oh my
time,
gosh. I mean,
Yeah,
resources.
but we'll take off with this podcast. This is going to take off. We're going to become big time like blogger,
Mhm.
podcaster, vlogger people, and
Yeah.
we'll be able to just be in a hardcore grind group because it's our job and we make money.
Yeah. Okay. Oh.
1 in a trillion that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. I'd say one. So, do we want to like start wrapping up and
Yes, actually, we've actually gone over our time, which
oh
I
my.
like. I like it.
I mean, it's been enjoyable talking about like, old school days of gaming and how
Oh
we got
yeah.
where we are and why we love the critically acclaimed game that is Final Fantasy XIV.
With an
And
unlimited trial to level
yes,
60.
No limits on gameplay.
Yep.
Oh.
But I guess as a little like for future podcast, this one was just a introduction. This is who we are, and was a bit more freeform, I guess, which I want to maintain. I'd like us because I guess that's what podcasts are kind of like in a lot of ways, especially on these kind of topics. It's not like a news podcast where here's our specific story and we must stay on this specific topic no matter what. I want it to be a bit more freeform, but also we'll introduce more structure as we come up with more precise topics to discuss. Because right now it was mostly about this is our history of gaming and this is us. And oh man, remember when it was like that? And then, off we go. So future podcasts could be more targeted. For instance, one of the topics we really want to talk about next time would be the plugin drama. Or what do we call it? The plugins?
Hooligans.
Plogon.
Well, yeah,
Plogons.
there it is.
Plogon. Splatoon, UAV Online, NASA. If anyone's been following the world race in the Omega Protocol Ultimate in Final Fantasy XIV, you will know that there is a lot of controversy surrounding that fight. The hardest fight in the game to date, and be plenty of stuff to talk about for that. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Oh
It's yeah.
yeah.
But I guess like just hot take, rapid takes, real quick. Where do we stand on plugins in the game? Like, where are you
I
guys at?
I think Squeenix should just come out and say, like, anything that gives you an advantage in gameplay is strictly prohibited and you will be banned. And yeah, I think Square needs to come out and just say it. Say what
Yeah,
is okay and what is not okay, and just, by gosh, do it.
I agree. A lot of the I think the issue right now is there's a lot of gray area, and it's just kind of there's definitely different levels of plugin usage, and it's just kind of like pitting people against each other in a bad way. It's like, well, like you guys, please stop fighting. Like technically, both sides are against TOS, but yeah, I think it would be a lot better if there was this like a better layout of like, okay, this is what we absolutely will not accept. Also, I think it's interesting how certain plugins have like been added to the game like officially, which is interesting. But I won't talk about that.
I
Yeah.
It's so tough because if they say yes to anything, realistically, they have to personally review the add-on or the plugin and say yes, we approve that because people will find gray areas of well, technically it's not helping, but it kind of is and like
Yeah,
people are going to push the lines, so you would have to actually sit there and say yes to certain plugins. And then, what about the console people because they're not going to be able to run them and then I could see that turning into a mess. And I think that's why they just say no plugins. And
Yeah.
that's all I got. And then but I don't I kind of want them to avoid any plugins, but I see the value of a lot of them, so I would be open to something where we could have some plugins or some community support for features.
Yep. And we will dive into that.
Oh yeah, we can get real deep on that one. Real deep.
get a bird's eye view
Yep.
of many of the topics.
Your bird's eye view. Ha ha ha.
Guys.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, this has been great. A lot of fun. Thank you for putting this together, Nux.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have more work ahead of me for this one. Because we don't have an editor on board, so I have to. I am the de facto editor for now, so I'm gonna have to re-listen to all of it. The hardest part is hearing your own voice. It's the worst.
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Agree.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to more. We're gonna release bi-weekly so far. That's our plan. Maybe if we really get into a groove, weekly, but for now, bi-weekly. Give us some time to go over things and figure out topics and what we want to talk about. And yeah, that's what I've got. That's what we've all got. Thank you guys for coming on and joining in, and looking forward to more good times like this. And that's about it. So everybody have a great couple of weeks until we come back. You better have listened this far. We can't do
Oh,
anything, but you
I
better
guess.
have. And there we
All
go.
right.
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.